Enkanomiya's release has given us a huge lore dump in regards to Watatsumi's ancestry and history, as well as how Tevat became how it is today. Among the heavens before and during the rise of the Seven, we get to learn more about Istaroth, the god of time. Most of the information regarding Istaroth is revealed in Volume 2 of the Byakuya collection. Istaroth is described as a shade of the primordial one, who is assumed to be an ancestral god from a world that is beyond Tevat. This means that her, as well as the other three shades that were created by this god, likely resemble the primordial one's appearance. The primordial one's appearance is described as such. It has wings, a crown, was birthed from an egg, and androgynous in nature. We have a character in this game who matches this description nearly perfectly, Paimon. Now, just because Paimon fits this description doesn't mean that she herself is the primordial one. She could be one of the other shades, or she could simply just be a descendant of Istaroth or the other shades. Now, about Istaroth. Istaroth is her true name, but the people of Byakuya refer to her as either Kairos, which is the traditional version, or Tokyo Okami, which is the Narukami version of her name. Aside from names, her official titles include being the God of Time or the Thousand Winds of Time, meaning her main elements are wind, which we know as Anemo, and time. Istaroth is described as the personification of wind and helped to create life with the primordial one. Now there are many possibilities as to who Istaroth may be, but I've come up with two main theories. The first theory is that Paimon is Istaroth, meaning that we would know 2 out of the 4 shades, the second one likely being the unknown god, the sustainer of heavenly principles. It has been theorized in many ways before Enkanomiya's release that Paimon could be the god of time or have some relation to the heavens. So far, what has been speculated, Paimon's powers mainly have to do with time. I'd like to go more specific and say that her assumed power has more to do with present time rather than directly using the past and future time. If we analyze the etymology of Istaroth's traditional name, kairos, we see that it means the right, critical, or opportune moment. In fact, all definitions related to the ancient Greek word have to do with time in terms of a portion or a specific period, and not time in an eternal or a general sense. This word is the same one that was used for the Greek god Kairos, who was a personification of opportunity, luck, and favorable moments. This means that Istaroth's time powers had to do with taking advantage of the present moment in order to make a situation better or to make something exist along different timelines. Thus, this would hint, and possibly even prove, that Istaroth is the one who created the Sin Shades in Enkanomiya that we see during Evernight. This is also hinted at in the section The Parabole of the Tree in the Byakuya's collection, as well as the Sin Shades description. While we don't have much information about Paimon's powers, we do have some in-game hints showing her ability to warp in and out of the present time at will, as we can see since she only really pops up in the escape menu. She rarely, if ever, pops up though when we're traveling in real time, except for when we're in dialogue and on occasion when we're doing something like swimming. Now this could simply be a design choice made by miHoYo and nothing to do with her actual powers, since she even stops when we pull out the time wheel. Regardless, she at the very least seems to be able to warp through the present reality in some type of way. Another reason as to how Paimon could be Istaroth is the way that she was found by the Traveler. If we recall, she was found at sea near Mondstadt. Something that we know about Istaroth was that she was simultaneously worshipped with Barbados in the nation of Mondstadt after the fall of Decorabian's Mondstadt, as she was referred to here as the Thousand Winds of Time. This is alluded to by the Thousand Winds Temple in the Sacrificial Weapon series. More specifically, the Sacrificial Bow's lore description states, "On the cliff facing the eastern sea, the ancestors worshipped the masters of time and Anemo together. The two are intimately related, as expressed in the saying, Anemo brings stories while time nurtures them." Based on this description, it would mean that Venti had a close relationship with one of these gods, which would most likely be Istaroth since she was the god of time during this time period. However, this is where the theory begins to fall apart, because throughout our time with Venti while we're exploring Mondstadt, he never seems to recognize Paimon at all. It wouldn't make sense for them to be described on many accounts as having some sort of intimate connection with each other, yet they're not able to recognize each other at all. Now, whether this is due to Venti simply not having any remembrance of the god since so many years has passed since then, or since Paimon's memory gap is getting in the way, there's no other really supporting factors or pieces of evidence that could support this section of the theory. Now onto the second theory, which I personally think is more probable in this case. Now the second theory states that Paimon is an incarnation of either Istaroth or is simply another shade who happens to have similar abilities to Istaroth. Now Paimon jokes about being a god with the traveler in some of their dialogues, even going as far as to call herself the quote-unquote god of protection. While this was simply Paimon and the traveler having fun with each other, I'm going to make a copia move here and say that this could be an instance of Paimon recollecting a piece of her memory. This could make sense as the dialogue specifically happened as they were in Inazuma traveling in Yashiori Island, which is about several months since the start of their journey together. This theory also goes back to the meaning of kairos, which I explained at the beginning of the first theory. Now remember when I said in ancient Greek that the word meant the right, critical, or opportune moment, and that the god Kairos was the personification of this word? Well, Kairos was also one of the words ancient Greeks used for the word time, the other word being chronos, and I think Paimon's possible abilities may stem from this god. Now there is an excerpt that I found from volume 53 of the academic journal The Monist, which helps to define chronos in kairos. This excerpt, in summary, defines kairos as the qualitative aspects relating to when something happens. It focuses on when a time comes that can't happen again or can only happen under certain circumstances. The easiest example of kairos is the weather seasons. We usually define when it is spring, summer, fall, and winter based on weather conditions alongside certain time periods. Oftentimes, the months between, let's say, late November and early February, at least across most states in the United States, count as wintertime. Now conversely, Chronos focuses on the quantitative aspects of time. That is, time in terms of measurements and limits, like the time in seconds, minutes, hours, etc. An example of this is how we tell the time on the clock, and that would be a quantitative measure of time and thus an example of Chronos. Now the awkward part of this is that in Orphic Greek mythology, Chronos was the one who created Phanes, who here in Genshin Impact is assumed to be the primordial one here, and that he, Chronos, was a self-created being. That is why I made sure to state that Paimon may have a similar ability to Chronos and could be an incarnate of him reborn as one of the primordial one shades. Regardless, Chronos' power as the primordial god of time involves creating the universe and the eternal passage of time itself. This would mean that he would have the power to time travel or time warp, making him able to change the past, present, and future at will. Now this isn't to say Paimon herself might directly have this power, but rather her power would likely stem from something related to time similar to Istaroth. In the case that she is not Istaroth, it could mean that these two are the two sides of time, Istaroth being kairos and Paimon being chronos. Okay, this theory video low-key, well not low-key, high-key kind of fried my brain, and I probably have some gaps within these theories because, I'll be honest, I spent a little bit of time on these theories and it just got to the point where I was literally just in a constant loop of whether or not what I was saying makes any sense, but this is the best I could come up with the information that I had already gathered and already know. So hopefully this video is interesting, and if you liked it, lovely. Let me know your thoughts about who you think Paimon might be, especially with the information that we got from Enkanomiya. Would love to hear your thoughts. Until the next video, bye bye.